8-year-old Emma rolled her wheelchair into millionaire Marcus Davidson's office. He had just destroyed her family's restaurant and left them homeless. But instead of anger, she asked him an innocent question: "Where can I buy a dad?" His shocking answer changed 3 lives forever. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Marcus Davidson had built his empire on one simple rule: trust no one. At 42 he was worth $300 million, owned luxury hotels across the country, and had a reputation for being the most ruthless businessman in the city. But today, everything was falling apart. "Sir, the Peterson family is here," his secretary announced nervously. "They're demanding to see you immediately." Marcus didn't look up from his computer. The Peterson family had been trying to sue him for 6 months, claiming he had cheated them out of their family restaurant. They were wrong, of course. Marcus had followed every law, used every legal loophole. Business was business. "Tell them I'm busy," he snapped. "Sir, they have their daughter with them. She's in a wheelchair and she's asking to speak with you personally." Marcus finally looked up, annoyed. "I don't care if they brought their entire family. I don't have time for this nonsense." But before his secretary could respond, the office door burst open. An angry man in his 40s stormed in, followed by a woman with tears in her eyes, and behind them, a little girl in a pink wheelchair. "Davidson," the man shouted. "You destroyed our family. 20 years we built that restaurant, and you stole it from us with your fancy lawyers and dirty tricks." Marcus stood up, his face cold. "Mr. Peterson, I suggest you leave before I call security. I bought your restaurant fairly. You couldn't make your loan payments and I offered you a way out." "A way out?" Mrs. Peterson cried. "You offered us pennies for a business worth millions. You knew we were desperate because of Emma's medical bills." Marcus glanced at the little girl in the wheelchair. She looked about 8 years old, with bright green eyes and blonde curls. She was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. "I'm a businessman, not a charity," Marcus said coldly. "If you couldn't afford your daughter's medical expenses, you shouldn't have taken out loans against your business." "We had no choice." Mr. Peterson's voice cracked. "Emma needed surgery. The insurance wouldn't cover it. We thought we could pay back the loan when business picked up again. That's not my problem." The little girl suddenly spoke up. "Excuse me, Mr. Davidson?" Everyone turned to look at her. Her voice was soft but clear. "Yes," Marcus said impatiently. Emma rolled her wheelchair closer to his desk. "I have a question for you." "Emma, honey, we should go," her mother said gently. "No, Mommy. I need to ask him something important." Emma looked directly at Marcus. "Mr. Davidson, where can I buy a dad?" The room went silent. Marcus stared at the child, confused. "What?" "I want to buy a dad," Emma repeated seriously. "Someone told me that if you have enough money you can buy anything. So I want to know where I can buy a dad who won't leave when things get hard." Marcus felt something uncomfortable twist in his stomach. "I don't understand what you're asking." "My daddy left us," Emma explained matter-of-factly. "When I got sick and we started having money problems, he said it was too much stress. He moved away and doesn't call anymore. So I thought maybe I could buy a better dad. One who wouldn't run away." Mrs. Peterson started crying harder. "Emma, sweetie, that's not how it works." "But Mr. Davidson has lots of money," Emma said, looking at Marcus. "And everyone says he gets whatever he wants. So he must know where to buy good dads." Marcus felt his throat tighten. This wasn't what he had expected. "Little girl, you can't buy a father." "Why not?" Emma asked innocently. "You bought our restaurant. You bought the building where we lived. You buy everything you want." "That's different. Those are businesses, properties." "But aren't dads more important than restaurants?" Emma interrupted. "Our restaurant was special because Daddy worked there with us. But then he left and you took the restaurant too. So now we have nothing." Marcus looked at the Peterson family. He'd seen them as numbers on a spreadsheet, a business transaction. He hadn't thought about them as real people with real problems. "Emma," he said carefully, "what would you do if you could buy a dad?" Emma's face lit up. "Oh, I know exactly. First, I'd buy a dad who would carry me when I get tired of my wheelchair. Second, I'd buy a dad who would help Mommy stop crying at night. Third, I'd buy a dad who would come to my doctor appointments and hold my hand when I'm scared." She counted on her small fingers. "Fourth, I'd buy a dad who would teach me how to ride a bike, even though I can't use my legs. And fifth, I'd buy a dad who would never, ever leave no matter what." Marcus felt something break inside his chest. This little girl, sitting in a wheelchair because of a condition that had bankrupted her family, was describing the kind of father every child deserved. How much money do you have? He asked quietly. Emma reached into her small purse and pulled out a handful of coins and crumpled bills. $17.43. I've been saving my allowance, but Mommy said we can't afford allowances anymore. And you think $17 is enough to buy a dad? I don't know how much dads cost, Emma said seriously. But I thought maybe you could give me a discount since you already have so much money. Marcus looked at this innocent child who had just asked him the most heartbreaking question he'd ever heard. Then he looked at her parents who were watching him with a mixture of anger and desperate hope. Mr. and Mrs. Peterson, Marcus said slowly, could I speak with you privately for a moment? Whatever you have to say you can say in front of Emma, Mrs. Peterson said firmly. Marcus nodded. Fair enough. He took a deep breath. I want to make you an offer. We're not interested in any more of your offers, Mr. Peterson said bitterly. This is different. Marcus looked directly at Emma. Emma, you asked me where you can buy a dad. I want to tell you something very important. Emma leaned forward in her wheelchair, listening intently. You can't buy a dad, Marcus said gently. But sometimes if you're very lucky you can find someone who wants to be a dad. Someone who thinks you're so special that they would be honored to take care of you. Really? Emma's eyes widened. Really? Marcus turned to her parents. I want to give you back your restaurant. No strings attached. Full ownership just like before. The Petersons stared at him in shock. But that's not all, Marcus continued. I also want to set up a medical fund for Emma. Enough to cover any treatments she needs for the rest of her life. Why? Mrs. Peterson whispered. Marcus looked at Emma again. Because your daughter just taught me something very important. She taught me that the most valuable things in life can't be bought. Love, loyalty, family, those things have to be earned. I still don't understand, Mr. Peterson said. Marcus stood up and walked around his desk. He knelt down so he was at Emma's eye level. Emma, you asked where you could buy a dad. The answer is, you can't. But what you can do is find someone who already wants to be your dad. Someone who thinks you're the most amazing little girl in the world. Like who? Emma asked hopefully. Marcus felt tears in his eyes for the first time in 20 years. Like me. The room went completely silent. Marcus, Mrs. Peterson breathed. I'm serious, Marcus said, looking at Emma's parents. I know this sounds crazy. I know you have every reason to hate me. But your daughter just asked me a question that changed my entire life. He turned back to Emma. Emma, I've spent my whole life buying things. Buildings, businesses, expensive cars. But I've never had a family. I've never had someone who needed me for anything more than money. You want to be my dad? Emma asked in a small voice. More than anything in the world, Marcus said honestly. But only if you want me to be. And only if your parents think I deserve the chance. Emma looked at her parents, then back at Marcus. Would you really carry me when I get tired? Every time. And help Mommy stop crying? I'd do everything I could to make your whole family happy. And come to my doctor appointments? I wouldn't miss a single one. And teach me to ride a bike? Marcus smiled through his tears. We'll figure out a way to make that happen. And you'd never leave? Never. Not for any reason. Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, Mommy, can Mr. Davidson be my dad? Please? Mrs. Peterson was crying so hard she could barely speak. Emma, honey, it's not that simple. He would have to marry Mommy for that to work. Emma looked at Marcus. Would you marry my mommy? Marcus looked at Mrs. Peterson, really looked at her for the first time. She was beautiful, but more than that, she was strong. She had fought for her daughter, stood by her family, never given up even when everything fell apart. Mrs. Peterson, Marcus said softly, I know this is overwhelming. I know you have no reason to trust me. But if you'll give me a chance, I'd like to try to earn your love and Emma's trust. This is insane, Mr. Peterson said, but his voice wasn't angry anymore. Was amazed. Dad, Mrs. Peterson said quietly, maybe insane is what we need right now. Emma clapped her hands. So Mr. Davidson will be my new dad? If he proves he deserves it, Mrs. Peterson said, looking at Marcus. If he shows us that he's serious about being part of our family. Marcus nodded. I understand. I have a lot to prove. You hurt us, Mrs. Peterson said firmly. You took away our livelihood, our security, our dreams. If you want to be part of this family, you need to understand that trust has to be earned. I know, Marcus said. And I want to earn it. All of it. The rehabilitation of Marcus Davidson was not easy. He had to learn how to be human again, how to put people before profit, how to care about something more than money. But Emma was an excellent teacher. She taught him patience when she had bad days with her condition. She taught him joy when she laughed at his terrible jokes. She taught him love when she fell asleep in his arms during their nightly story time. Marcus sold 3 of his hotels and used the money to build a medical research center focused on Emma's condition. He learned everything he could about spinal cord injuries and funded experimental treatments. He also learned how to be a husband to Sarah, Mrs. Peterson's first name, which he'd never bothered to learn during their business dealings. She was an amazing woman who had sacrificed everything for her daughter, and Marcus felt honored that she was giving him a chance to prove himself. "Marcus," Sarah said one evening as they watched Emma play in their new backyard, "I need to ask you something." "Anything. Do you ever regret it? Giving up your old life for us?" Marcus thought about his old life. The empty penthouse, the loveless relationships, the constant pursuit of more money. "Sarah, I didn't give up my old life. I found my real life. But your business empire is doing better than ever. Turns out when you have a reason to work beyond just making money, you make better decisions." It was true. Marcus had discovered that treating employees well, caring about customers, and building genuine relationships was actually more profitable than his old ruthless methods. "Daddy Marcus," Emma called out. She was in her new electric wheelchair, one that could handle any terrain. "Come push me on the swing." Marcus had designed a special swing set that Emma could transfer to from her wheelchair. Watching her soar through the air, laughing with pure joy, was better than any business deal he'd ever closed. "Daddy Marcus?" Emma said as he pushed her swing. "Yes, princess? Thank you for letting me buy you." Marcus laughed. "Emma, you didn't buy me. Remember? We talked about this." "Yes, I did. I gave you my $17.43 and now you're my daddy." Marcus still had that money in a frame on his desk at work. "You're right. Best $17 I ever earned. And you know what the best part is?" "What's that?" "Now I know where little girls can buy dads." "Where's that?" Emma grinned. "In their hearts. You find someone who needs love as much as you do and you choose each other." The wedding was magical. Emma wore a white dress and served as both flower girl and ring bearer, wheeling down the aisle with more confidence than most people walked with. Marcus stood at the altar watching his soon-to-be wife approach. Sarah looked radiant, but what made her beautiful was the peace in her eyes, the knowledge that her daughter would never again have to ask where she could buy a dad. "Do you, Marcus Davidson, take Sarah Peterson to be your wife?" "I do," Marcus said, his voice strong and sure. "Do you, Sarah Peterson, take Marcus Davidson to be your husband?" "I do," Sarah said, tears of joy streaming down her face. "And Emma," the minister said, smiling at the little girl, "do you accept Marcus as your father?" "I already bought him," Emma announced proudly. "He's mine forever now." Everyone laughed. After the ceremony, Marcus found a quiet moment with his new daughter. "Emma, do you remember that day you came to my office? When I asked where to buy a dad?" "Yes." "Do you know what you really bought that day?" Emma thought seriously. "A family?" "You bought something even more important than that." "What?" "You bought a chance. A chance for all of us to learn what love really means." Emma hugged him tight. "That's a really good deal for $17.43. The best deal I've ever made." That night, as Marcus tucked Emma into bed in their new house, their family home, she looked up at him with sleepy eyes. "Daddy Marcus?" "Yes, sweetheart. I'm glad you can't really buy dads at stores." "Why is that?" "Because then everyone would get the same kind. But I got a special daddy. One who learned how to love because I asked the right question." Marcus kissed her forehead. "Sweet dreams, Emma." "Sweet dreams, Daddy." As Marcus turned off the lights, he thought about the journey that had brought them here. It had started with a business conflict, a family's desperation, and a little girl's impossible question. "Where can I buy a dad?" She taught him that the most important things in life couldn't be bought. They could only be chosen, nurtured, and loved. Marcus Davidson was still a millionaire businessman. But more importantly, he was a husband and a father. And those were the titles that mattered most. The answer that had shocked everyone wasn't that you could buy a dad. The answer was that sometimes, if you ask the right question with enough innocence and hope, you can find someone who wants to be bought, not with money but with love. And sometimes, the best investments are the ones you make with your heart.